Sarah, fair to say there's no giddy expectations for Osaka in terms of a deal. So what's the best we can expect here? Talks about talks?
So I think we're probably at the best case scenario with our reporting, what it showed today. It seems like President Trump is willing to delay, at least hold off on imposing tariffs on an additional $300 billion of Chinese goods, which of course we know would essentially then hit every Chinese good coming into the U.S. And I think, you know, the reason that he agreed to this is because China said it would not come to the table. President Xi would not meet Trump at the summit at the G20 unless the U.S. agreed to it. That's what our sources are telling us. So, you know, I think that's a huge sort of concession in a way from the U.S. side. Of course, you know, we've seen when the two leaders met before in December in Buenos Aires, Trump held off on tariffs in that case. And of course, they were raised eventually when talks broke down. And so I think the most important thing to remember is that the two sides are nowhere close to a deal right now. And the Trump administration is more than willing to raise tariffs if they can't reach an agreement. So, you know, a little bit of good news, but we're still at a bit of a standstill.
Sarah, it's been really interesting to hear all of these senior U.S. officials trying to play down what's going to go down at the G20.
Yes, I mean, until this week, there wasn't even really an agenda or a set sort of bullet points of what the leaders would agree to, and it's really being organized quite hastily. You know, it's sort of anything goes at this point. And so I think really it's just to get past this point, this impasse in the talks right now where the sides are not speaking at all. You know, they had been for months, and now that's completely broken down. And if Trump and Xi can at least use this personal bond that they claim to have to just get that political will to restart them, that would just be the best case scenario for these talks. At this point, there's absolutely no expectation of a trade deal being reached this weekend.
Yeah, Sarah, in the meantime, the collateral damage from the trade war continues to spread. We have the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, giving a speech here in the Sydney Bureau shortly. He's expected to touch on these themes as well. So when the G20 gets underway, is there an expectation that there'll be some pressure from the other 18 nations to get something sorted out?
Absolutely. We published a story by Sean Donnan, one of our senior trade reporters, that looked at some of this collateral damage from the trade war. And it's not just exports that are being hit, it's imports into China, of course, because supply chains are starting to shift. You know, places like China saw its imports decrease from places like South Korea and Japan over the past month. And the real indication, you know, that companies are now doing what they're saying. They're starting to rethink their supply chains and sort of dig in for the long haul for a protracted trade war at this point. And so you can bet that these group of 20 countries are probably going to be holding their breath, hoping that at least Trump and Xi get along and they can buy a bit more time before this next round of tariffs at least is considered again on the $300 billion.